My daughter-in-law told me the celebration dinner was canceled. It's been postponed, Eleanor. You don't need to come. I believed her. But as I walked past the restaurant, I saw them, her and my son, toasting with their friends, using my credit card. In that moment, I pulled out my phone, canceled the card, and watched the smile slide off her face in seconds. There are moments in life that break you in two, moments where the floor disappears from under your feet and everything you thought you knew turns to ash. That October night, walking through the streets of downtown Chicago with my grocery bag in my hand, I lived that moment. My name is Eleanor. I'm 67 years old, with wrinkles I count as medals and a heart I thought was unbreakable. For 42 years, I was married to Arthur, a good man who left me a widow 5 years ago. Since then, my world has shrunk to 3 things: my 2-story house in Oak Park, my rose bushes that I tend to every morning, and my son, Michael. My only son. My reason for going on when Arthur was gone. But that night, as the cold October air hit my face and the city lights twinkled indifferently, I discovered that a mother's love can become your worst blindness. It all started with a phone call 3 hours earlier. I was in the middle of making my famous pot roast, the one Michael had loved since he was a boy, when my cell phone rang. It was Jessica, my daughter-in-law. "Eleanor. Hi, how are you?" Her voice sounded rushed, almost irritated. "Listen, I'm calling to let you know that the dinner tonight is postponed. Michael had a problem at work, so we'll just move the celebration to another day." I felt a pang of disappointment. We had planned this dinner for 2 weeks to celebrate Michael's promotion at the architecture firm. I had bought the freshest ingredients. I had taken out the fine china that I only use on special occasions. I had even gone to Mrs. Henderson's bakery for those cinnamon rolls Jessica likes. "Is Michael okay?" I asked, worried. "Do you need anything?" No, everything's fine. Just work. Honestly, don't bother coming over. Just relax." And she hung up. Something in her tone bothered me. It wasn't concern I heard. It was haste. Like I was just a task to check off her list. I stood there looking at the steaming pot, the roast bubbling with that aroma of herbs and spices that filled the kitchen. I felt a weight in my chest. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I was being a paranoid old woman, as Jessica had once called me, accidentally on purpose, during an argument. But I couldn't settle down. I decided to go for a walk. I needed air, to clear that strange feeling tightening in my stomach. I put on my beige cardigan, the one Arthur gave me that smells like lavender because I keep it with sachets, and I walked out, heading toward the local market. Maybe buying some flowers would cheer me up. The sunset painted the sky orange and violet. The streets were alive. Street vendors, the smell of hot dogs from a cart, music spilling from shops. I walked without a real destination, just letting my feet carry me. And then I saw it. The Starlight Lounge, that elegant restaurant with huge windows and warm lights that Michael always said was too expensive for a casual dinner. I passed by it purely by chance, by that cruel coincidence that fate sometimes hands you when you need to wake up. And there they were, Michael, my son, sitting at a large table right by the window, laughing, with a glass of red wine in his hand, making a toast. Beside him, Jessica, wearing that tight black dress I had never seen, her hair up in a sophisticated bun, looking like she was the queen of the night. But they weren't alone. There were 8 other people at that table, friends of theirs. I recognized a few: Amanda and her husband, that couple who always make pretentious comments. Ryan, Michael's friend who sells insurance. 2 girls I didn't know, with makeup like models. And they were all laughing, all toasting, all eating from those enormous plates they only serve in restaurants, where one meal costs more than a week's worth of groceries. I froze on the sidewalk. People pushed past me, bumping me accidentally, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. There were wine bottles, 3, 4, I lost count. Lobster tails, cuts of steak, flaming desserts, and in the center of the table, a silver bucket with champagne. Jessica raised her glass, said something that made everyone laugh, and Michael kissed her on the cheek. It was as if someone had plunged a knife into my chest and was twisting it, slowly. "It's been postponed, Eleanor. You don't need to come." Jessica's words echoed in my head, a mocking refrain. Nothing was postponed. I was just excluded. They lied to me. They pushed me aside like an old piece of furniture that no longer matches the decor. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when I remembered something that chilled my blood. That morning, Jessica had asked to borrow my credit card. "Eleanor, I need to buy a gift for Michael, something special for his promotion. Can I borrow your card? I'll give it back to you tomorrow. I promise." I, as always, gave it to her without a second thought. And there they were, spending my money, celebrating without me, laughing, probably about how easy it was to fool the silly old woman who gave them everything without asking questions. Something inside me shattered. It wasn't sadness, it was fury. A cold, quiet fury that rose from the pit of my stomach and filled me completely. I pulled out my cell phone with trembling hands. I opened the banking app, and there, in real time, I could see the charge they had just attempted. Restaurant, the Starlight Lounge, $2,600. $2,600. On a single night, on a lie. I didn't think twice. My fingers moved on their own. I went to the security section, and I canceled the card. Immediate cancellation. All pending transactions blocked. I lifted my gaze to the window just in time to see the exact moment. A waiter approached their table. He said something to Jessica. She frowned. She pulled out her cell phone. Her face, which seconds before had been glowing with happiness, transformed. First, confusion. Then, panic. Then, rage. I watched her show the screen to Michael. I watched him pull out his phone, too. I watched them both start typing frantically. And then, as if she could feel my stare, Jessica looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. She saw me standing on the sidewalk, in my old cardigan and with my grocery bag, staring right at her. And on her face, I saw something I will never forget. It wasn't shame. It was contempt. She looked at me the way you look at an annoying insect that just ruined the party. Michael saw me too. He turned white. He said something. Jessica stopped him, put her hand on his, shook her head. I didn't move. I didn't go in. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just watched them. I watched them until Jessica looked away, uncomfortable, until Michael hung his head. Then, with the dignity I had left, I turned around and walked back home. My legs were shaking. The city lights blurred through the tears I refused to let fall. The noise of the street became a distant hum. When I got to my house, I locked the door, turned off the lights, and sat down on the living room sofa. That sofa where Arthur and I watched Michael grow up, where we celebrated his first steps, his birthdays, his achievements. And for the first time in the 5 years since Arthur died, I felt completely, utterly alone. But in the midst of that loneliness, in the midst of that pain crushing my chest, something began to wake up. A question. A terrible doubt I hadn't dared to ask before. How many times had this happened? How many other lies had I swallowed without even realizing it? I didn't sleep that night. And when the sun came up the next day, I was no longer the same woman. Because some deceptions hurt, and some deceptions transform you. And if you want to know just how far my own family's betrayal went, and how a silly old woman gave them the lesson they would never forget, subscribe to this channel. Because this story is just beginning, and what I discovered next was so much worse than I ever imagined. That early morning, sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, I started to remember. And every memory was like opening an old wound that had never healed properly. I met Jessica 4 years ago. Michael brought her home one Sunday, arm in arm, smiling in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. "Mom, this is Jessica. She's special. I wanted to believe him. I wanted my son to be happy after being alone for so long." Jessica was pretty, I won't deny it. Tall, slim, with that kind of confidence that commands attention. She was from Dallas, worked in marketing. She used sophisticated words that I sometimes didn't understand. From the beginning, there were signs. Small things, so subtle I ignored them, thinking it was just my imagination. The first time I cooked for her, I made my prize-winning lasagna, the one everyone in the family loves. She barely touched it. "Oh, I'm trying to cut back on carbs, Eleanor, but it looks interesting." She said it with a little smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael laughed nervously and changed the subject. When I showed her photos of Michael as a baby, she yawned. Oh, Eleanor, all babies pretty much look the same, don't they? When I told her about Arthur, about how we met at the state fair more than 40 years ago, she checked her phone while I was talking. How sweet, Eleanor. So romantic, without looking up from the screen. But I stayed quiet because Michael looked at her like she was the Sunday, and I didn't want to be the bitter mother-in-law who ruins her son's happiness. Then came the wedding. Jessica wanted a wedding straight out of a magazine. A huge garden, an imported dress, a banquet for 200 people. It's my day, Eleanor. A woman only gets married once. She looked at me with those eyes I was beginning to recognize. The ones that said, you have the money, I have the youth, do your part. Michael was working as a junior architect. He made good money, but not that much. Jessica had just quit her job because of stress. So they turned to me. Mom, I know it's a lot to ask. Michael had that little boy face that always melted me. But Dad always said that when I got married, he would pay for my wedding. I know he's not here, but he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I spent $35,000 on that wedding. The savings Arthur and I had scraped together from selling the hardware store. Money I was saving for emergencies, for my old age, so I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. Jessica chose everything. I just signed the checks. On the wedding day, she didn't even thank me. She just said, "Oh, Eleanor, it's so good you could help us." Michael deserved nothing less. After the wedding came the wedding gift. They were renting a small apartment. Jessica complained constantly. "We can't live like this, Michael. I come from a good family. I'm used to something else." One day, they came to my house. Jessica with a serious face. Michael, nervous. "Mom, we found the perfect condo in Lincoln Park. 3 bedrooms, a balcony, parking. But we need the down payment." Michael wouldn't look me in the eye. "It's an investment. Someday it will be for our kids. For your grandkids, Mom. $50,000. Almost the entire inheritance Arthur left me." I did it. Of course I did it. Because that's what mothers do, right? Sacrifice. Give everything. Even when it hurts. Jessica hugged me that day. The only hug she'd given me in 4 years. "Thank you, Eleanor. You don't know what this means to us." But things didn't get better. They got worse. Michael started visiting less. He used to come every Sunday for dinner. Then it was every other week. Then once a month. Always with excuses. "Jessica has yoga, Mom. We have plans with her friends. You know how bad the traffic is." The phone calls changed too. We used to talk about everything. Now the conversations lasted 3 minutes. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine, son." "Great. I'll call you later." Gotta run. And then the emergencies started. "Eleanor, our washing machine broke. Can you lend us the money to fix it?" $1,000. "Eleanor, Jessica needs an urgent dental procedure." $2,000. "Eleanor, the car needs new tires and we're short this month." $800. It always ended up on my credit card, the one I lent them for emergencies, and they never gave back. 6 months ago, Jessica used my card to buy clothes. I saw her tagged on Instagram with bags from Nordstrom and Saks Fifth Avenue. When I asked her about it, she laughed. "Oh, Eleanor, it was a sale. Don't tell me you're going to get upset over a few rags." $1,000 in clothes she called a few rags. I stayed silent. I always stayed silent. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I complained, Michael would pull away even more. Afraid of being left completely alone. Afraid of being the bitter old woman nobody wants around. Arthur always used to tell me, "Eleanor, you're too good. People take advantage of that." I would always reply, "He's our son, Arthur. A son would never betray you." But Arthur was gone. And I was beginning to understand that I had been wrong. That morning, as the cold coffee turned bitter in my mouth, I realized something terrible. I hadn't been generous. I had been a coward. I gave them money because it was easier than demanding respect. I accepted scraps of attention because I was terrified of having nothing. And Jessica knew it from the very beginning. She smelled my weakness like a shark smells blood. The sun was just starting to rise when I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for affection. I was going to find out the truth, the whole truth. Because if they had lied to me about a dinner, what else had they lied about? I went to my room, pulled out the folder from my nightstand where I kept the bank statements, the ones I never checked because I trusted my son. I spread them out on the kitchen table, and I began to read. What I found took my breath away. But that is something that still hurts to tell. And when you find out, you'll understand why what I did next wasn't revenge. It was survival. I couldn't stay home. Not after seeing them through that window, celebrating with my money, while I was the inconvenience they had to hide. I put on my gray coat, the one I wear to church, tied my hair back in a low ponytail, and walked back out onto the street. It was almost 9 o'clock at night. The streets were still full of life, but I walked like a zombie with one destination in mind: the Starlight Lounge. Every step I took toward it was a battle between my dignity and my pain. One part of me screamed, "Go home, Eleanor. Don't humiliate yourself anymore." But another part, the one that had awakened when I canceled the card, pushed me forward. Go, look them in the face, let them know you're not the fool who stays quiet anymore. When I arrived, I stood in front of the entrance. The doorman looked at me strangely. I didn't fit in there, with my simple clothes, my old grocery bag, my comfortable walking shoes. But I walked in anyway. The place smelled like money, scented candles, fresh flowers, that expensive perfume restaurants use to make people feel like they're somewhere special. The tables were full of elegant people, quiet conversations, clinking glasses. And in the back, by that enormous window overlooking the glittering city, was Michael and Jessica's table. I walked toward them. My legs were shaking, but I didn't stop. Jessica saw me first. Her queen of the party face froze. She tapped Michael's arm urgently. He turned, and when he saw me walking toward them, he went as white as a sheet. The friends at the table stopped laughing. Everyone was staring at me, an old woman interrupting their perfect celebration. "Good evening," I said when I reached the table. My voice came out firmer than I expected. "Sorry to interrupt." Michael stood up awkwardly. "Mom, we. You don't need to come," they told me. I looked him straight in the eye. The dinner was postponed, they told me. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Eleanor, what a surprise to see you here." She fixed her hair, recovering that mask of superiority. "See, what happened was, plans changed, and we just thought it would be better not to bother you. You know, at your age, it's tiring to go out at night." "At my age," I repeated slowly. "Of course." I looked at the table. The empty wine bottles, the half-eaten plates, the champagne bucket, the lobsters, the expensive desserts. I did a quick count, 10 people in total, some had already left. "And this is part of not bothering me?" I asked. "Spending my money on a party I'm not invited to?" One of the friends, Ryan, coughed uncomfortably. The two girls I didn't know looked down. Amanda, the pretentious one, exchanged a look with her husband. Michael tried to take my arm. "Mom, it's not what you think. Let me explain outside." I pulled my arm away. "No, explain it to me here, in front of all your friends who are toasting with the money you borrowed for a special gift." Jessica stood up. Her face wasn't friendly anymore. "Eleanor, you're making an unnecessary scene. Why don't you just go home, and we can talk about this calmly tomorrow?" "A scene?" The word burned me. "I'm making a scene? Tell me, Jessica, how much did this dinner cost?" She clenched her jaw. "That's really none of your business." "It is my business, because you paid for it with my credit card." I pulled out my phone, found the statement. $2,600 on a single night. The silence at the table was absolute. Even the conversations at nearby tables stopped. "Mom, please," Michael whispered. "You're embarrassing us." That damn sentence was like a slap in the face. "I'm embarrassing you?" My voice cracked. "Me? The one who paid for your wedding? The one who bought your condo? The one who, every time you have an emergency, pulls out her card without asking questions?" Jessica crossed her arms. "No one forced you to do any of that. You offered. You always offer everything because you need to be needed." I felt like I'd been stabbed, but she wasn't finished. "The truth is, Eleanor, it's exhausting. Always playing the victim. Always reminding us how much you've given us. You know what? If it bothers you so much to spend on us, then just don't do it. Tears started to burn my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not in front of her. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I looked at Michael, my son, the boy I raised alone after Arthur died, the one who swore he would always take care of me. Is that what you think, too? I asked him. He didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. And that was all the answer I needed. I reached into my purse, pulled out the credit card I had mistakenly brought with me, the one that still worked. I put it on the table, next to the remains of their expensive meal. Settle the bill with this one, I said. It's the last thing you'll ever use of mine. Jessica snatched the card with a triumphant smile. As you wish, Eleanor. I turned to leave, but before I walked out of that place, I turned back one last time. Enjoy your dinner, I said, because it cost you far more than you can imagine. I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high, even though I was falling apart inside. In the taxi on the way home, the tears finally came. I cried silently as the city blurred past the window. But in between those tears, something else was being born. A determination, a cold rage, a certainty. If this is how they treated me when I gave them everything, then it was time to find out what happened when I gave them nothing. And what I found when I got home and checked those bank statements. Believe me, it was only the beginning of a nightmare I had been funding without even knowing it. I got home after midnight. I locked the door, turned on all the lights in the living room, and sat down at the dining room table with a determination I had never felt before. On the table, I put my old laptop, the one Michael had taught me to use years ago. I logged into the bank's portal with trembling hands. Not from fear, from rage. The screen loaded slowly. Username, password, and there it was, my bank account. The one I had in good faith shared with my son 2 years ago when he told me it was so I can help you if you ever have an emergency. So you're not alone in this, Mom. I'll take care of you. What a bitter irony. I started reviewing the transactions from the last 6 months. At first, calmly. Then, with my heart hammering faster and faster. January, charge, department store. $1,850. Charge, luxury spa. $1,280. Charge, premium wine shop. $930. February, charge, Milano boutique. $2,460. Charge, Astrid and Gaston restaurant. $1,570. March. And this is where my blood ran cold. Charge, Sunset Tours Travel Agency. $5,000. $5,000. I opened the detail. All-inclusive package to Cancun. 5 days, 4 nights, 2 people. Ocean view suite. I shot up from the chair. I paced the living room, breathed deeply. They never told me they were going on vacation. They never invited me. They didn't even mention it. I went back to the computer. I kept digging, like peeling an onion, knowing every layer would make me cry more. April, charge, Cartier jewelry. $2,500. Charge, beauty salon. $890. Charge, sports club annual membership. $3,100. May, charge, contemporary furniture. $5,260. Charge, Samsung Electronics. $3,840. June, charge, Pujol Restaurant. $2,210. Charge, Barleyman Tour. $1,180. Charge, designer store. $2,930. My fingers were shaking on the keyboard. I got out my old notebook, the one where Arthur used to write down the hardware store's accounts, and I started to add. January, $5,870. February, $6,320. March, $10,480. April, $9,830. May, $10,370. June, $8,140. I kept going with July, August, September. Every month was the same. Expenses and more expenses. Expensive things, luxuries. Whims. When I finished adding it up, the number knocked the wind out of me. $20,000. In 6 months, my son and my daughter-in-law had spent $20,000 of my money, without asking, without telling me, without a single explanation, money I had earned working 30 years in the hardware store alongside Arthur. Money that cost us early mornings, exhaustion, sacrifices, money I was saving so I wouldn't be a burden to anyone in my old age. And they spent it like it was confetti. I poured a glass of water with shaky hands. But I wasn't finished. I remembered something. My tablet. The one I bought last year and left charging in the living room. Michael sometimes used it when he visited, saying his phone battery was low. I went to get it. I turned it on. And I found something that broke me in a way I didn't expect. The accounts were synced. His WhatsApp. His messages. Everything. I didn't want to look. Part of me screamed to stop, that I had suffered enough. But another part, the new Eleanor who was being born that night, knew I needed to see the bottom of the pit. I opened the chats. The first group was called The Girls. It was Jessica's group with her friends. I went in and read. Jessica. Girls, look at the necklace I bought myself. Cartier, obviously. The old woman will never even notice. Ha ha ha. Amanda. Girl, you're my idol. I could never ask my mother-in-law for that much. Jessica. It's not asking, it's taking what I deserve. That old woman is sitting on a pile of money and doesn't even use it. What does she want it for? Her funeral? Better that someone who appreciates nice things enjoys it. Carla. Ha ha ha. No way, Jess. You're ruthless. Jessica. Honestly, I'm sick of her. Always with her martyr face. Always wanting us to thank her for everything. She's a walking ATM and doesn't even know it. Every word was a stab. But I kept reading. Jessica. The good thing is Michael is totally on my side. I told him if he doesn't back me up with his mom, I'm leaving. And the poor idiot would do anything to keep me. Amanda. You're a strategist, girl. Jessica. I'm not a strategist. I'm smart. And when the old woman dies, that whole house in Oak Park is going to be ours. I already talked to Michael. It's in her name. But we're the only heirs. It's just a matter of time. I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. When the old woman dies, that's what they called me. The old woman. As if I didn't have a name. As if I didn't have feelings. As if I were just an obstacle to be tolerated while they could bleed me dry. And Michael knew. Michael was okay with it. I searched more. I found private messages between Jessica and Michael. Michael. My mom asked me about the $5,000 for the trip. Jessica. And what did you tell her? Michael. That it was a bank error. That they were going to fix it. Jessica. Good. As long as she keeps believing everything you say, we'll keep living the good life, my love. Michael. Sometimes I feel bad, Jess. Jessica. Oh, don't start. Do you want me to leave? Because if you prefer your mom over me, just say so. Michael. No. I'm sorry. You're right. She's old. We have to live our lives. I closed the tablet. I stood up. I walked to the bathroom and threw up. Not from physical nausea. From the emotional disgust of realizing that my own son, the child I carried in my womb, the one I cared for when he had the measles, the one I held when his father died, that son saw me as an obstacle, as money on legs. I washed my face. I looked in the mirror, my swollen eyes, my wrinkles, my gray hair, and in that moment, I made a decision. I was no longer going to be the silly old woman. I was not going to be the walking ATM. I was going to give them a lesson they would never, ever forget, but not with screaming. Not with drama, with intelligence, with strategy. Like Jessica said, you don't have to be good, you have to be smart. And I was about to show them just how smart this old woman could be. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room sofa, clutching the embroidered pillow my mother gave me 30 years ago, as the hours passed, slow and cruel. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the doorbell rang. Insistent, aggressive. I got up, my body aching. I hadn't changed clothes. I was still wearing the same wrinkled blouse from the night before. I opened the door. Michael was there, but he wasn't the Michael I knew. His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. He was wearing that expensive shirt I gave him for his birthday, his father's watch on his wrist. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, without a greeting, without asking how I was. I let him in. I closed the door. I waited. He didn't sit. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking down at me as if I were an employee who had made a mistake. "Why did you do that last night?" His voice was cold. "Why did you come to the restaurant and embarrass us in front of our friends?" I stayed quiet, processing that those were his first words. Not an apology. Not an explanation. A reprimand. "Are you serious, Michael?" My voice was calmer than I expected. "You're scolding me?" Jessica is a wreck. She didn't stop crying all night because of the humiliation. He ran a hand through his hair. "You canceled the card in the middle of dinner. Do you have any idea how bad you made us look?" "How bad I made you look?" I repeated slowly. "Michael, you lied to me. You told me the dinner was canceled so I wouldn't go. It was a surprise. We were going to ask you to come at the end for dessert." He looked at me like I was stupid. "But you showed up early and ruined everything." The lie was so blatant it was almost painful. "Uh-huh. And I suppose spending $2,600 was also part of the surprise." Michael huffed, annoyed. "Mom, you're overreacting. It was a celebration. My promotion was important, and we wanted to celebrate it properly. With my money. Because you gave us the card." He raised his voice. "You always give it to us. You always say yes. And now, all of a sudden, you get angry and make us look bad." I went to the kitchen. I grabbed the bank statements I had printed out. I came back and shoved them in his face. $20,000, Michael. That's what you've spent in 6 months. Without asking. Without telling me. He didn't even look at the papers. "It's normal expenses, Mom. Clothes, food, going out. Things we need. $5,000 for a trip to Cancun you never told me about? We don't have to tell you everything we do." His tone became defensive. "We're adults." $2,500 at a jewelry store? I pointed to the statement. $5,200 on furniture? $3,100 for a gym? Jessica deserves to have nice things. He exploded. "Do you know how hard we work? She gave up her career to support me. It's the least I can do for her." Something shattered inside me. "Michael, she doesn't work. She quit a year ago. Because she needs to focus on herself, on her emotional well-being. And who pays for all that while she focuses on herself?" My voice cracked. "Who pays your rent? Who pays for her whims? Who pays for everything, Michael?" "You have the money, Mom," he shouted. "Dad left you the hardware store. You have this huge house all to yourself. Why are you so selfish that you don't want to share with your own family?" Selfish. He called me selfish. I sat down on the sofa because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "I'm the selfish one," I whispered. "Michael, I paid for your wedding. I bought you your condo. I have given you everything you've asked for and more. Is that being selfish?" "No." He crossed his arms. "But now that I'm asking you nicely, you shut down and get like this. Dad wouldn't have done this." There it was. The card I knew he would play. "Don't bring your father into this. It's true. He was always generous. He always supported us unconditionally." He looked at me with something that looked like contempt. "You, on the other hand, you give with one hand and take back with the other." The tears started to fall. I couldn't stop them anymore. "Your father also would have wanted me to be respected," I said through sobs. "To be valued. To not be lied to." Michael sighed, as if I were a heavy burden he had to carry. "Look, Mom, Jessica is my wife. She's my priority. If I have to choose between making you happy or making her happy, I'm going to choose her, always." Every word was a nail in my heart. "And what am I to you?" I asked, my voice broken. "You're my mom and I love you." "But you're old, Mom." He said it with terrifying casualness. "You've already lived your life. Now let me live mine. Stop trying to control everything with your money." I just stared at him. This 32-year-old man who was once my baby, who used to cling to me when he had nightmares, who told me "I love you, Mommy," every night before bed. Now he looked at me like I was an obstacle. "Michael, I just want you to respect me. And I just want you to understand that you're not the center of my world anymore." He walked to the door. "Fix the card, or Jessica and I are going to have to make some difficult decisions about our relationship with you." He left. He closed the door without saying goodbye. I was left alone in that living room where I watched him grow up, surrounded by photos of happy moments that now seemed like lies. I hugged my mother's pillow and cried like I hadn't cried since I buried Arthur. I cried for the son I had lost, because the Michael who had just left was not my son. He was a stranger who looked like him. I cried for all the years I gave love without measure, for all the times I stayed quiet, for having become someone so disposable. But among those tears, something changed. The pain turned into clarity. If, to Michael, I was just money, then it was time to close the bank. And if Jessica thought I was a silly old woman who was going to keep financing her luxuries while they planned to take my house when I died, she was dead wrong. Because this old woman had just woken up, and what came next was going to surprise them in ways their manipulative minds could never have imagined. I spent 3 days locked in my house, not answering calls, not opening the door, barely eating, crying when my body demanded it, and then drying my tears with rage. On the 4th day, someone knocked on the door insistently. "Eleanor, Eleanor, I know you're in there. Open up, or I'm kicking this door down." I recognized the voice, Ruth, my neighbor for my entire life. 72 years of pure energy and character. I opened the door. She burst in like a whirlwind, a steaming pot in her hands. "Honey, you look like hell." She set the pot down in the kitchen. "When was the last time you ate something decent?" "Ruth, I'm not really in the mood. I don't care." She gently pushed me toward the table. "Sit down. I made you chicken soup, and you're going to tell me what on earth is going on, because you haven't been out in days, and I saw Michael leave here the other day looking like thunder." Something in her tone, firm but loving, broke me, and I told her everything, every detail. The restaurant, the messages, the expenses, Michael's words. Ruth listened in silence, pouring the soup, passing me napkins when the tears wouldn't let me speak. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "Eleanor, I'm going to tell you something I never tell anyone." She took off her glasses, cleaned them on her apron, and put them back on. 12 years ago, I had a house, a beautiful house in Evanston that my husband and I bought when we got married. 3 bedrooms, a yard with trees, the kitchen I always dreamed of. She paused. When my Ernesto died, my oldest son Kevin came to live with me. He brought his wife. They told me it was temporary while they saved for their own place. She took a sip of water. 2 years went by. They were still there. They didn't pay rent. They didn't pay utilities. I paid for everything. One day, I found some hidden documents. Kevin had forged my signature. He had put the house up as collateral for a loan he never told me about. When he couldn't pay, we lost everything. Her voice cracked. I was left with no house, no savings, nothing. I had to come rent this tiny apartment where I live now. I stared at her, wide-eyed. "Ruth, you never told me." "Because I was ashamed." She wiped away a tear. "Ashamed of being so stupid, of trusting so blindly. My own son stole my house, Eleanor. And when I confronted him, he told me the same thing Michael told you, that I was old, that I had already lived my life, that he needed the money more than I did." She stood up, walked over to me, and took my hands. "Don't be like me. Don't let them take everything from you. Because when you lose it, you don't just lose things, you lose your dignity, and that's not easy to get back." Her words hit me hard. "But I don't know what to do, Ruth. I don't know how to fight back." "I do." She pulled out her phone. "My niece, Sarah, is a lawyer, specializes in family law. She's seen cases like yours hundreds of times. Let me call her." I didn't think twice. Call her. The next day, Sarah came to my house. She was in her 40s, power suit, intelligent eyes. She carried a briefcase full of documents and a small audio recorder. "Mrs. Johnson, a pleasure." She shook my hand firmly. "My aunt told me about your situation, and I want you to know something. You are not alone, and what they are doing to you has a legal solution." She sat down, took out a notepad. "First things first. What is in your name? This house. It's completely paid off. The deed is in my name. Perfect. And the condo you gave your son? It's in my name too. They just live there. Sarah looked up, surprised. You gave them a condo but never transferred the deed? No. Michael said it was better to leave it that way for tax reasons, that we'd sort it out later. Sarah smiled. A small, significant smile. Mrs. Johnson, that condo is legally yours. They have no rights to it whatsoever. I felt a tingling in my chest, like something dormant was waking up. And the money they spent? Sarah reviewed the statements I showed her. She flipped through the pages slowly, taking notes. This is misuse of a credit card. Technically, if they didn't have your explicit authorization for each purchase, it's a crime. We can file a civil suit to recover the money. Really? My voice trembled with hope. And we have something else on our side. Your messages. She pointed to my tablet. These conversations where they admit to using your money without your knowledge, where they call you a walking ATM, where they plan to inherit your house. All of that is evidence. Ruth clapped. That's my girl. Sarah leaned back in her chair. She looked at me seriously. Mrs. Johnson, I have to ask you something important. What do you want to achieve with this? Do you want to punish them? Do you want your money back? Do you want them to learn a lesson? I thought for a moment. What did I want? I didn't want to destroy Michael. He was still my son, despite everything, but I couldn't keep being his victim either. I want my dignity back, I said finally. I want them to understand that I am not a resource they can exploit. I want Michael to open his eyes and see what Jessica really is. Sarah nodded. Then we're going to design a strategy, not to destroy them, to wake them up. For the next 2 hours, the 3 women sitting in my dining room laid out a plan that would start with a trap, a test to see just how far they were willing to go. Sarah explained every step. Ruth chimed in with ideas. I took notes with hands that no longer trembled. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like control. One more thing, Sarah said before she left. Do you have a will? Yes. Everything goes to Michael. We're changing it. Today. Because if anything happens to you, I need your wishes to be legally protected. That afternoon, we drafted a new will. One that specified exactly what would happen to my assets. One that Michael and Jessica would never expect. When Sarah and Ruth left, I was alone in my house. But I didn't feel alone anymore. I had allies. I had a plan. I had power. Jessica had said you don't have to be good, you have to be smart. Well, this old woman was about to show them just how smart she could be. And the trap I set for them was so perfect, they walked right into it themselves, like mice smelling cheese without seeing the cage. Sarah had told me something before she left. Mrs. Johnson, the best revenge isn't the one you spring immediately. It's the one you prepare patiently and let them walk into themselves. She was right. 5 days passed after our meeting. 5 days in which I didn't contact Michael. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I let the silence do its work. He was the one who called first. Mom, are you okay? You haven't answered my messages. His voice sounded normal, as if he hadn't told me I was old, as if he hadn't chosen his wife over me. I'm fine, son. I kept my tone calm. I've just been thinking. Thinking about what? That you're right. I've already lived my life. It's time for you to live yours without me being an obstacle. Silence on the other end. Mom, I didn't mean. No, it's okay. Really. I took a deep breath, playing my part. In fact, I want to make up for the restaurant. I was being over-dramatic. Really? His voice changed, became more animated. Yes. Come over tomorrow. Bring Jessica. I want to talk to both of you. I hung up before he could respond. The next day, they arrived right on time. Jessica was wearing a pale pink dress, hair down, makeup perfect. Michael had that relieved smile of someone who thinks they've won the battle. I sat them down in the living room. I served them coffee. Homemade cookies. Forgive me for the scene at the restaurant, I began. Ruth told me I'm just going through a difficult emotional time. Just age. Jessica exchanged a look with Michael. A look of triumph. Don't worry about it, Eleanor. Her voice was sickly sweet. We understand. Late-onset menopause can cause those kinds of outbursts. I gritted my teeth, but I smiled. Thank you for understanding. That's why I've made a decision. I pulled a new credit card from my purse. Gold. Gleaming. This is a new card. No credit limit. It was a lie. It had a $500 limit. But they didn't know that. Jessica's eyes lit up like a cat spotting a mouse. Mom, you didn't have to. Michael tried to sound humble, but greed was dancing in his eyes. Yes, I did. I want you to know that I trust you. I handed the card directly to Jessica. Use it when you need to. It's my way of saying I'm sorry. Jessica took the card with her long red-painted nails. Oh, Eleanor, you're too sweet. Right, honey? Michael nodded. Thanks, Mom. This means a lot. I walked them to the door. I watched them drive away. And as soon as they were out of sight, I pulled out my phone. Sarah had installed a special app on it. One that notified me every time they tried to use the card. With amounts, locations, times. Now we just wait, she had said. If they've really changed, they'll use it moderately. If not, they'll hang themselves. I didn't have to wait long. 2 hours later, notification. Charge declined. Versace boutique, $1,800. Insufficient funds. I smiled. Jessica had tried to buy a $1,800 purse. My phone rang. It was her. Eleanor, there's a problem with the card. It says it's declined. Oh, really? How strange. Let me check on it and call you back. I hung up. I didn't call her back. Over the next 3 days, I received 7 more notifications. All declined charges. Spas, restaurants, clothing stores. Jessica was desperate to spend. Then it was time for the next step of the plan. I invited them over again, this time with a different excuse. Kids, I need you to help me sign some papers. I put a thick folder on the table. They're inheritance documents. I want to leave you everything in life to avoid problems when I'm gone. Jessica sat up straight in her chair, like a dog smelling steak. Inheritance? She asked, feigning surprise. Yes. This house, my savings, everything. I want it to be yours now. It was a lie. They were fake documents Sarah had prepared. The real ones were in my lawyer's office. Mom, you don't have to do that. Michael tried to sound modest. Yes, I do. You're my only family. Jessica was already reading the papers, her eyes scanning every line greedily. Looking for the amounts, the values, her reward. The house is valued at $700,000, I said casually, plus the remaining savings and the condo you live in. The condo too? Jessica looked up. That too. Everything. But I need to ask you for one favor in return. Michael tensed. What favor? I want you to let me live here until I die. I don't want to be put in a home. This is my house. Jessica let out a little laugh. Oh, Eleanor, of course. Why would we ever do that? Because in those messages I read, you told your friends that as soon as I signed, you'd convince me to sell the house and move me into a home to get the money, I thought. But I didn't say it. So, we sign? Jessica already had a pen in her hand. Not today. First, I want to organize a family dinner, so we can sign it all together, with witnesses, as it should be done. The disappointment on Jessica's face was delicious. Witnesses? She asked, her voice tight. Yes, Ruth. Her niece, who's a lawyer. Some of the neighbors. I want it to be official and nice. How does Saturday sound? Michael looked at Jessica. She nodded, forcing a smile. Perfect, Eleanor. Saturday. When they left, I called Sarah. They took the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. Perfect. Now comes the good part. Do you have the evidence ready? All of it. Bank statements, screenshots of the messages, recordings of the conversations where they admit they're just waiting for me to die. Excellent. On Saturday, we're going to give them the surprise of their lives. I hung up. I poured myself a chamomile tea. I sat in my favorite armchair. For the first time in months, I slept through the entire night. No nightmares, no tears. Because I knew that on Saturday, the tables were going to turn. And the people who thought they had me eating out of the palm of their hand were about to find out that this old woman still had claws. And what happened at that family dinner? Believe me, not even in their worst nightmares did they imagine their world would come crashing down so fast and so publicly. Saturday arrived with a clear sky. I prepared the house as if it were a celebration. Clean tablecloths, fresh flowers on the table, the smell of the pot roast that Michael loved so much filling every corner. But it wasn't a celebration. It was a tribunal. They arrived early. Jessica was wearing a tight white dress, as if she were the bride at her own wedding. Michael was nervous, adjusting his tie every 2 seconds. "Mom, it smells delicious," he said, kissing my cheek. "Thank you, son. Sit down. The others will be here in a moment." Jessica scanned the living room, already measuring spaces, imagining how she would redecorate when it was hers. The doorbell rang. Ruth came in with a lemon meringue pie. Behind her, Sarah with her briefcase. Then Mr. Peterson and his wife, Carol, neighbors for life, who had known Michael since he was a boy. "This many people?" Jessica whispered to Michael. "They're witnesses, honey. It's normal," he replied. What they didn't know is that they were also the audience. Everyone sat around the large dining room table. 8 people in total. I sat at the head, as the host. Jessica and Michael were across from me, like defendants who just didn't know it yet. "Thank you all for coming," I began. My voice was firm. "I've gathered you here because I need to discuss something important with my son and daughter-in-law, and I want you to be witnesses." Sarah took out her audio recorder. She placed it in the center of the table. "Is that necessary?" Jessica asked, uncomfortable. "It's legal protocol," Sarah replied in a professional tone. "All inheritance proceedings must be documented." Jessica relaxed. Michael nodded. I placed the stack of bank statements on the table, the folder with the screenshots, the bank documents, all neatly organized in clear folders. "Before we sign anything, I want us to look at these papers together." Michael frowned. "What are they?" "They're my credit card statements from the last 6 months." The color drained from his face. I opened the first folder. I pulled out the summary sheet. $20,000. That's what you have spent using my card without my explicit authorization. My voice didn't tremble. Trips, clothes, restaurants, jewelry, furniture, gyms. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. "Eleanor, what are you talking about? You gave us the card. For emergencies. Not to finance a lifestyle you can't even afford on your own." I pulled out the screenshots. I spread them on the table like poker cards. "This is a conversation of yours, Jessica, with your friends." I read aloud. "The old woman will never even notice. She's a walking ATM. When she dies, the house is going to be ours." The silence was absolute. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson exchanged horrified looks. Ruth pursed her lips. Jessica turned pale. That's taken out of context." "Out of context?" Sarah interjected. "Mrs. Johnson, it says right here, and I quote, 'It's just a matter of time until the old woman dies and everything is ours.' I never." Jessica looked to Michael for support. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out another set of screenshots. Conversations between Michael and Jessica. "Michael, did you or did you not tell Jessica that the $5,000 charge for the Cancun trip was a bank error?" My son couldn't look me in the eye. "Mom, yes or no?" "Yes." His voice was barely a whisper. "And when I asked you why you visited me less, did you tell Jessica it was because I was an emotional burden?" Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "Mom, it wasn't literal. And when we argued 2 weeks ago, when you told me I was old and that I should let you live your life, did you mean it?" Michael broke. He hid his face in his hands. Jessica, on the other hand, hardened. She was done pretending. "You know what, Eleanor? Yes, I said it. All of it. Because it's the truth." She stood up. "You are a manipulative old woman who uses her money to control Michael. You give and give, so he always feels guilty. So he always has to come visit you, to put up with you." "Jessica, shut up." Michael tried to stop her. "No, I'm done." She pointed her finger at me. You want to know the truth? Michael doesn't visit you because he doesn't want to. I don't force him. He says it himself. He's tired of your complaints, of your stories about when Dad was alive, of your house that smells like old people. Every word was a slap. But I took them standing. Are you finished? I asked calmly. No. You promised us this house. You promised us the inheritance. And now you want to humiliate us in front of strangers because we took a little of your precious money? Sarah cleared her throat. Technically, Mrs. Johnson, they didn't take anything, because it's all still hers. Jessica whipped around to face her. What? Sarah pulled documents from her briefcase. The condo you live in is in Mrs. Johnson's name. She never transferred the deed. It is legally her property. Jessica's face went from the red of fury to the white of panic. But Michael said. Michael had no authority to promise anything, Sarah continued. Furthermore, Mrs. Johnson amended her will 1 week ago. You are no longer the sole heirs. Michael looked up, his eyes swollen. What? How could you? Jessica screamed. That house is ours. We deserve it. You deserve it? Ruth's voice cut like a whip. For calling her the old woman? For robbing her? For wishing her dead? Mr. Peterson shook his head. Michael, I held you when you were a baby. I watched you grow up. I never thought you'd be capable of treating your own mother this way. Michael was sobbing uncontrollably now. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. But Jessica wasn't giving up. You know what? Keep it all. Keep your house. Keep your money. Keep your loneliness. She grabbed her purse. Let's go, Michael. Michael didn't move. Michael, let's go. No. My son looked at me. I'm not going. Mom, forgive me. Jessica looked at him with pure contempt. Are you serious? You're going to choose your mommy over me? I'm not choosing anyone, he answered, his voice trembling. I'm facing what I did, what I let you do to me. You're a coward. Jessica stormed to the door. When you get tired of being a little mama's boy, you know where to find me. But I'm not going to beg. And she was gone. The door slammed shut, echoing through the house. No one spoke for a long minute. Michael just sat there crying. I watched him from my seat. Part of me wanted to run and hug him. The other part was still too hurt. Son, I said finally, there's still one more thing you need to know. And what came next was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. Because it's one thing to discover a betrayal. It's another to decide what to do with it. Michael was still sitting in that chair, shattered. His shoulders were shaking. The tears wouldn't stop. But I needed to finish this. For him. For me. For whatever was left of our relationship, Sarah pulled more documents from her briefcase. She placed them in front of Michael. Mr. Johnson, this is a civil lawsuit for misappropriation of funds. Your mother can legally recover the $20,000 that you and your wife spent without authorization. Michael looked up, his eyes red and raw. Mom, no. I don't have that money. I couldn't pay you back even if I wanted to. I know. My voice was softer than I expected. That's why we're going to reach an agreement. I pulled out another document. The deed to the condo. This condo is in my name. You have lived there for 2 years without paying rent, without paying utilities. I've covered everything. I pushed the paper toward him. You have 30 days to vacate. You're kicking us out? His voice broke. I'm not kicking you out. I am reclaiming what is mine. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. Eleanor is well within her rights, son. That property is hers. But Mom, where will we go? Michael wiped his face on his sleeve. That's no longer my problem, son. You chose Jessica. You chose to lie to me. You chose to use me. I took a deep breath. Now, you get to choose how to deal with the consequences, Sarah continued. Additionally, Mrs. Johnson is proceeding legally for the defrauded amount. $20,000. We can arrange a payment plan, but there must be a signed legal commitment. Michael sank his head into his hands. I don't know what to say. You're right about everything. I don't want you to tell me I'm right. I want you to understand what you did. Ruth got up, went to the kitchen, and returned with a glass of water. She set it in front of Michael with a gesture that was maternal but firm. "Drink this, and listen closely to what comes next." I took a breath. This was the hardest part. "Michael, when your father died, you promised me you would take care of me. You said, 'Mom, I'm the man of the house now. You won't want for anything.'" His sobs grew louder. "I believed you. I didn't just believe you. I put my entire life in your hands. My money, my trust, my heart. And you?" My voice cracked, but I went on. "You let a woman I barely knew turn you into someone I don't even recognize." "I know, Mom, I know, and I hate myself for it." "I don't hate you, Michael. But I also can't keep being your lifeboat while you're dragging me under." Sarah placed 2 more papers on the table. Option 1. We proceed with the full lawsuit. Recovery of the $20,000, immediate eviction, and possible criminal charges for fraud. She pointed to the other paper. Option 2. You sign a repayment agreement. An initial payment of $2,500, which you must come up with in the next 30 days, and the rest in monthly installments of $300 for the next 4 years. You vacate the condo, and you enter mandatory therapy. Michael raised his head. "Therapy?" "Yes, because you need to understand how you got to this point, how you allowed yourself to be manipulated." I looked at him steadily. "And I'm going to therapy too, to learn how to set boundaries, to stop being the mother who gives everything without demanding respect." Carol, who had been quiet the whole time, spoke softly. "Eleanor, you are so brave. Most mothers wouldn't have the courage to do what you're doing." "It's not courage, it's survival." I wiped away a stray tear. "Because if I keep going like this, I'll end up alone, broke, and with no dignity." Michael picked up the agreement. He read it with trembling hands. "And if I sign this? If I agree to everything? Can I still be your son?" The silence was heavy. "You will always be my son, Michael. That doesn't change." I paused. "But our relationship has to change. You can't just come around when you need something. I can't just give you money every time you ask. We can't continue this sick dynamic. And Jessica? That's your decision. But if you choose to stay with her, you will have to live with the consequences. I will not finance her lifestyle anymore. I will not be a part of that relationship." Michael closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. When he opened them, there was something different in them. Something like clarity. "Mom, Jessica and we're not compatible. I think I've known it for a long time, but I didn't want to see it." He wiped his nose. "She only wanted your money, and I was so stupid that I let her use me to get to it. So, I'm signing the agreement. I'll get that $2,500 even if I have to sell my car. I'll go to therapy, and I'm going to divorce Jessica." Sarah pushed the document toward him. She handed him a pen. Michael signed. Every letter was shaky, but it was there, a real commitment. "And the condo?" he asked in a small voice. "I'm going to sell it," I said. "With that money, I'm going to open a business. Something for me, a bakery with Ruth. I don't want to just live in the past anymore." Ruth smiled. "We're going to call it It's Never Too Late." For the first time that night, Michael smiled. A small, sad, but genuine smile. "Dad would be proud of you, Mom. I'm the one who disappointed him. Your father loved you, and I love you too. That's why I'm doing this." I stood up, walked over to him. Because real love isn't just giving everything without limits. It's taking care of yourself so you can care for others in a healthy way. He hugged me, and this time I hugged him back. But it wasn't the hug from before. It wasn't the hug of the mother who forgives everything with no consequences. It was the hug of 2 broken people who needed to heal separately before they could be okay together. When everyone left that night, I was alone in my house. But I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Free from being the bank. Free from being the martyr. Free from being invisible. And as I cleared the plates from the table and filed the signed documents away, I knew something had ended. But I also knew that something new was beginning. And what came next was proof that it's never too late to get your life back. It's never too late to be who you were always meant to be. 6 months after that dinner that changed everything, I woke up to the smell of fresh-baked bread filling my house. It wasn't just my house anymore. It was also my business. Ruth and I had converted the ground floor into a bakery. Cream-colored walls, rustic wooden tables, display cases full of cinnamon rolls, elephant ears, cheesecake, and that carrot cake that became our signature item. A hand-painted sign in the window read, "It's never too late, Artisan Bakery." The investment came from the sale of the condo. I sold it and cleared $80,000. A portion I used to set up the shop. Another I put away for my future. And a small portion I donated to a shelter for elderly women who were victims of family abuse. Because if I learned anything from this, it was that my story wasn't unique. There were thousands of women like me being used, being silenced, being invisible. The bakery opened its doors on a Tuesday in March. The neighbors came, acquaintances, people from the market, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson were our first official customers. They bought 2 pounds of butter cookies and gave us their blessing. "Eleanor, this is beautiful," Carol said with tears in her eyes. "After everything you went through, look where you are now." And she was right. After all that hell, I had found something like peace. But it wasn't easy getting here. Michael kept his word. He sold his car, a Jetta he loved, and gave me the initial $2,500. He was out of the condo in 28 days. He moved into a tiny studio in Wicker Park, something he could afford on his salary, and he started therapy. The first few weeks, we didn't talk much. Just short texts. "Good morning, Mom. How are you?" Superficial conversations between two people who needed distance to heal. But slowly, something started to change. Michael began going to therapy twice a week. He told me months later that his therapist helped him understand how Jessica had used emotional manipulation techniques from the very beginning. Guilt-tripping, isolating him from his family, financial control, all disguised as love. "Mom, I really thought that if I just made her happy, she would truly love me," he told me one afternoon while we were having coffee in the bakery. "But she never loved me. She only loved what I could give her." It hurt to watch him realize that, but it was also a relief. The divorce was surprisingly fast. Jessica didn't fight. She signed the papers in exchange for keeping the furniture from the condo and some small savings Michael had. She already had a new target, a businessman from Austin she'd met on social media. "I wish the poor guy luck," Michael said with a bitter smile. "He's going to need it." I didn't say anything. I didn't care about Jessica anymore. She had stopped taking up space in my head. As part of the legal agreement, Michael paid me $300 every month. Sometimes he'd arrive with the money and a pastry he'd bought from another bakery. "Just so you know, I support the competition too," he'd joke. Those moments were good. Not forced. Not laden with guilt. We were slowly learning how to be mother and son again. But different. Healthier. He stopped asking me for money. I stopped offering it. He started visiting because he wanted to, not because he felt obligated. I started living my life without waiting for him as my sole purpose. One Sunday, 4 months after the dinner, he invited me to his studio for lunch. It was tiny, modest, but clean and organized. He made pasta with tomato sauce. Something simple, but he'd made it with effort. "Mom, I know I can't erase what I did," he said as we ate, "and I know we'll probably never be like we were before. But I want you to know that I admire you. What you did, it was the bravest thing I've ever seen." I got a lump in my throat. "Son, I don't need you to admire me. I just need you to respect yourself, to understand your own worth, and to never let anyone turn you into something you're not." He nodded. "I'm working on it." And he was. I could see it in his eyes. He was no longer the lost, manipulated man from before. He was someone rebuilding himself. Today, as I work the register at the bakery and watch Ruth decorate a coconut cream pie, I think about everything that's changed. I no longer wait by the phone, hoping Michael will call. I have my own rhythm, my own plans. On Tuesdays, I go to a yoga class with other women from the neighborhood. On Thursdays, Ruth and I go to the movies. On Sundays, if Michael can make it, he comes for breakfast. If he can't, that's okay too. My house doesn't smell like loneliness anymore. It smells like cinnamon, vanilla, and fresh brewed coffee. It's filled with the laughter of customers, the music I play on the speaker, and the conversations Ruth and I have about new recipes. I recovered $18,000 of what I was owed. The rest, I forgave. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to let go of that burden. The will is still changed. Michael will inherit half of my estate when I'm gone. The other half will go to charities supporting elderly women. He knows, and he agrees. "It's fair, Mom," he said when I told him. "I don't deserve everything, and you deserve to decide." 2 weeks ago, Sarah came to visit. She bought a lemon pie for her family. "Mrs. Johnson, you have no idea how many clients have come to me with stories just like yours," she said. "Mothers being exploited by their own children. And when I ask them why they don't do anything, they say, 'But he's my son, I can't.'" "And what do you tell them?" I asked. "I tell them your story. And I tell them that love is not submission, that respect is non-negotiable, and that it is never, ever too late to get your dignity back." Those words stayed with me, because it's true. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much you've given. It doesn't matter how much you've been hurt. You can always, always choose to stand up. Choose to respect yourself. Choose to live. Today, as I close up the bakery and go upstairs to my home to make a cup of tea, I look in the mirror. I see a 68-year-old woman, wrinkles, gray hair, tired hands. But I also see a woman who saved herself, a woman who is no longer invisible, a woman who learned that true wealth isn't in what you own, but in what you refuse to let anyone take from you. And I smile, because if I could do it, anyone can. It's never too late to be who you were always meant to be. A full year had passed since that night at the restaurant. 12 months that felt like a lifetime. It was October again, the month when everything fell apart and everything was reborn. I was in the bakery's kitchen, kneading dough for the next day's cinnamon rolls, when I heard the bell on the door. "Coming!" I called out, wiping my hands on my apron. It was Michael, but he wasn't alone. He was carrying a box wrapped in colorful paper and a bouquet of wildflowers, the simple, pretty kind from the farmer's market. "Hi, Mom," he kissed my cheek. "I brought this for you." I opened the box. Inside was a new photo album, bound in brown leather. On the cover, embossed in gold letters, "Our Story, Chapter 2. I opened it with trembling hands. The first few pages were filled with old photos. Michael as a baby. His first day of school. Arthur carrying him on his shoulders. Christmases. Birthdays. Happy moments. Then came the new pages. Photos of the bakery. Of Michael and me at the grand opening. Of him helping me paint the walls. Of us sharing coffee in my living room. Photos documenting this last year of reconstruction. And at the end, a blank page with a handwritten note. "Mom, I can't change the past, but I can honor it by learning from it. Thank you for teaching me that real love also says no, that respect isn't optional, and that it's never too late to start over. I love you. Your son, Michael." The tears fell onto the page. "Do you like it?" he asked, his voice shy. "I love it." I hugged him, tight. "Thank you, son." We sat at one of the bakery tables. I poured him some coffee and gave him a piece of freshly baked apple pie. "How's therapy going?" I asked. "Good. Really good, actually." He took a sip of coffee. "My therapist says I'm in the final phase. Acceptance and growth. I'm glad to hear that. And you? How are you?" He looked at me, his eyes now holding a new maturity. "Really? Are you happy?" I looked around. The cozy bakery. The tables where neighbors gathered every afternoon. The "It's Never Too Late" sign glowing in the window. Ruth in the kitchen, humming a song while decorating cupcakes. "Yes," I answered honestly. "I am happy. For the first time in a long time, I am genuinely happy." Michael smiled. "That's all I want for you." We ate in silence for a moment. A comfortable silence, full of understanding. "Mom, there's something else I want to tell you." He put his fork down. "I met someone." My heart did a little jump, part protective, part curious. "Oh?" "Her name is Emily. She's an elementary school teacher. I met her at the therapy group." He blushed, slightly. "She's different from Jessica. Completely different. She's humble. She works hard. She has her own dreams. She doesn't ask me for anything. In fact, she insists on paying her own way, always. And how do you feel about her? Peace. I feel peace, Mom. Not drama, not manipulation. Just calm. I smiled. That sounds wonderful, son. I don't want you to meet her yet, he said quickly. Not until I'm sure. I don't want to repeat my mistakes. I don't want to bring anyone into your life who hasn't earned that place. Those words filled me with pride. I think that's perfect. Take your time. He looked relieved. The bell rang again. 3 regular customers came in, the Mendoza sisters, who came every afternoon for pastries. Mrs. Eleanor, we're here for our cinnamon rolls, the eldest shouted cheerfully. I got up to help them. Michael got up to help me. We worked side by side as a team, something we hadn't done in years. When the women left, Michael stayed to help me clean up. Mom, are you ever going to forgive me? Completely? He asked, as he dried some cups. I paused. I thought about the question. I've already forgiven you, Michael. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I'm no longer carrying the weight of the resentment, that I chose to let go of the pain so I could live. I looked him straight in the eye. What you did hurt me, deeply, and those scars are still there. But scars aren't weakness. They're proof that I survived. He nodded, holding back tears. I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you I've learned. You don't have to show me anything. You just have to be a good man. Live with integrity. Treat yourself with respect. And if you ever have children, teach them that family is built on love, but also on boundaries. I will. I promise. When he left that afternoon, I stood at the door watching him walk away. He was no longer the boy who needed my constant protection. He was a man learning to walk on his own, and I was no longer the mother defined only by him. I was Eleanor, business owner, friend, a woman complete in her own right. That night, before I went to sleep, I wrote in my journal. Something I had started doing in therapy. Today marks 1 year since I saved myself. 1 year since I chose myself. And though the road was painful, it was worth every tear. Because I learned that you can love someone without losing yourself in the process. That you can be generous without being a fool. That you can forgive without forgetting. And that it is never, ever too late to bloom. I closed the journal. I turned off the light. And I slept soundly. No nightmares. No guilt. No fear. Just the certainty that I had reclaimed the most valuable thing I had. My dignity. And that no one could ever take from me again. The end. This is my story. The story of how I hit rock bottom and got back up. Of how I lost my son only to truly find him again. Of how the worst moment of my life became the best new beginning. If you are going through something similar, if you feel like you are giving everything and getting nothing back, if you feel invisible in your own life, let me tell you something. You are not alone. You have value. And it is never, ever too late to start over. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Mexico, Colombia, Spain, the United States. I would love to know that these words reached you. Hit like if you believe that everyone deserves respect, no matter their age. And subscribe, because we will keep sharing stories of courage, of rebirth, of women who refuse to be invisible. Thank you for joining me on this journey. With love, Eleanor, because it's never too late to be who you always deserve to be.